So for homework, I'm going to ask that you take notes and take notes just the way that I'm taking them here. You can pause it if I'm going too fast and make sure you take them in your notebook. So you can title the notes 6 properties of numbers. You could put today's date. All right, so we're going to learn about 6 properties of numbers. The first one is called the commutative property. So it's commutative property. And the commutative property tells us that if I write something like this, 8 plus 3, then I could switch the order of them, right? 3 plus 8, and they would both give me the same answer. 8 plus 3 is 11, and 3 plus 8 is also 11. So it works for addition. And it also works for multiplication. So if I have 6 times 4, I could move them into the other order. So it could be 4 times 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 6 is also 24. And the commutative property works if I have multiple things going on. So if I had 3 plus 21 plus 17, I could put these in a different order to make my life easier. So I could say 3 plus 17 plus 21. And the 3 plus 17 becomes 20. And then 20 plus 21 is 41, which is easier than doing this. 3 plus 21 is 24 plus 17. And then 24 plus 17 is 7 plus 4 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 1 is 4. So I get the same answer, but the idea with this is you could rewrite it to make it simpler for yourself. So this works for addition and this works for multiplication. Now, the important thing to remember is it does not work for subtraction or division, but if I have a subtraction problem like 5 minus 3, if I wanted to use the commutative property, the first step is make it an addition problem. Because we know the secret is that every subtraction problem is actually an addition problem. I can write 5 minus 3 as 5 plus negative 3. And if I write it as 5 plus negative 3, then I can use the commutative property. So I can say that is equal to, I could switch the order of them and say negative 3 plus 5. And in both of those cases, 5 plus negative 3 and negative 3 plus 5, this is like having 5 yellow chips or 5 little pluses and then 3 minuses or 3 red chips. And so each of these is a 0 pair, so those go away. So I'm left with positive 2. So that is the commutative property. You can pause if you need time. The next one we're going to talk about is the associative property. So number 2 is the associative property. And the associative property has the word associate in it. So it's about grouping things together. So we're going to be using grouping symbols. So the idea with the associative property is I could have like 3 plus 5 plus 25. And that would be the same as if I did 3 plus 5 plus 25. And it would also be the same as if I did 3 plus 5 plus 25. And again, this is just about what would make a problem easier. So here I would get 3 plus 5 is 8 plus 25 is something. Here I would get 8 plus 25 is something. Here, if I choose to do this one first, I could do 5 plus 25 is 30. So I get 3 plus 30 is 33. And also if you do 25 plus 8, you will get 8 plus 5 is 13, carry the 1, get 33 anyway. So you get the same answer, but again, the idea with this is you could do it in a different order to make your life easier. So the associative property works if it's all addition. It also works if it's all multiplication. So if I had 7 times 2 times 5, I could write it as 7 times 2 times 5, or 7 times 2 times 5. And so this is 14 times 5. This is 14 times 5. This one, if I choose to do this first instead, I get 10 times 7, which is way easier to do. I get 70. 14 times 5, I could do, but it would take a while. I do 5 times 4 is 20. Carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So I would get 70. And that's the associative property. Pause if you need to. So the associative property works again for addition and multiplication. All right. When you're ready, we're going to go to the third one. We're probably only going to get 3 done, actually, because I don't want this to be really long for tonight. So we'll just do 3, and then we'll do the other 3 next time. So the third one is the distributive property. Distributive property. And the distributive property combines multiplication, addition, and subtraction. And the distributive property is a way to get rid of parentheses. A way to get rid of parentheses. And it's also a way to make calculations easier. So I'll do a couple examples for you. So I have 3 times the quantity 4 plus 11. So if I wanted to do that, I could do in parentheses 4 plus 11 is 15. And then I have 3 times 15. And if I don't know what 3 times 15 is, I would have to do 15 times 3. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So this gives me 45. The other way to do distributive property is I take what's on the outside and I multiply it by everything inside one at a time. So I get 3 times 4. Remember that dot means multiply, plus that same 3 times 11. And so 3 times 4 gives me 12, plus 3 times 11 gives me 33. And so some people might find this easier to add than doing that multiplication. So if I have 33 plus 12, 3 plus 2 is 5, 3 plus 1 is 4, so I get 45. Now, you might be like, well, those are equally difficult, so it doesn't really matter. But if I have something like this, 3 times x minus 2, I can't actually figure out x minus 2 because I don't know what x is. So again, I could do the same thing. I'm multiplying this 3 by everything inside, so I get 3 times x, just gives me 3x. And then I keep my minus sign, and I say 3 times 2 gives me 6. And we'll learn more about distributive property next class. But for right now, I just wanted you to have a couple examples of these. So we've covered commutative property, which tells us we can write things back and forth. Commute is like a car. You can think about it like that. That's my attempt at a car. Door. Because a commuter goes back and forth. So these can go back and forth. So that's the commutative property. The next one was the associative property. And associating is like groups of people hanging out together, right? So like you can decide who you're going to do first by grouping them together, by putting little parentheses around them. And then the last one was the distributive property, which has the word distribute in it. And that means you're taking this 3 and you're multiplying it to everything else. So you are distributing this 3 and everyone gets to multiply by that 3. And we'll learn another way to do the distributive property next class. But for right now, this is good. I want you to take some time to write it down. Make sure you understand it. And if you're interested and you have time, you could look up some of these properties online and see if they explain it a different way. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.